Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome to this series of Citrix Ready podcasts, where we talk about the key technology integrations that Citrix has with its partners. As many of you listening will know by now, I'm passionate about the role of technology in business and how it is increasingly being seen as an enabler across multiple industries. But I want to highlight real-life stories and help other business leaders listening understand how they can transform their business and leverage opportunities that technology offers too. So in these podcasts, we're going to discuss the future of work. And with Citrix's mission to power a better way to work, we discuss how technology can empower people and organisations to unlock innovation, engage customers, and be productive anytime, anywhere. On today's podcast, we have Nitin Sharma from Citrix and Trentent Tye from ControlUp. And I want to explore both Citrix perspective and their partners and how they're solving problems for businesses together. So enough from me. Let's get them onto the show. A massive warm welcome to the first episode of the Citrix Ready podcast series, guys. But can I ask you tell the listener a little bit more about who you all are and what you do?
Thank you. My name is Nitin Sharma, Senior Product Marketing Manager at Citrix, underneath the Citrix Workspace services.
Hi, and I'm Trentent Tye. I'm actually Senior Technical Evangelist with ControlUp, and I just got my Citrix CTP this year.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. Now, when most people think about Citrix, they will look back to key solutions that pioneered secure remote access to securing app delivery and enabling enterprise mobility. But here in 2019, most businesses will be looking to create true digital workspaces to secure competitive advantages through your solutions. So can I ask that you tell me a little bit more about how your services have changed over the years and how the focus of Citrix on the future of work has actually evolved?
Yeah, so I've been with Citrix for about 8 years, and even in the 8 years that I've been there, it's sort of changed a little bit too. But going back through just from the history of our company, we've always enterprises would utilize Citrix as more of a tactical way. We would allow, secure remote access to a specific application, or if there is an application that doesn't work on a specific Windows operating system, they would use Citrix because it would sort of sit in the back data center, and then, an end user would, download a client, and then they would, launch just to get access to that app. So, and there's that, and then sometimes organizations that were looking for a disaster recovery scenario, they would look at Citrix to just provide, secure remote access when they can't make it to the office. But what we've seen is since then, it's shifted over to where we've become a little bit more involved in the actual strategic direction of an organization's, like strategy and being more involved in some of the things that help them maintain a competitive advantage. So that goes into where we're going into today with our solutions. It's more or less changing the way people work. So it's, we always use the tagline. It's not really about where you work. It's more about, how you work, giving users the flexibility to use their choice of device, their locations that they want to work from so that they could work from home. They could work at the coffee shops or in the actual office. So it's going beyond the idea of working, which is going and commuting to work at a specific time and sitting at a desk. We want to help organizations sort of shift that around to give their employees the actual tools to work wherever they want, improve productivity, but also an enhanced end user experience. And sort of going forward, changing the way how end users work, but also giving IT administrators the proper tools to manage these the new things that they're faced with in the present era of information technology.
So if we have a leader from an organization undergoing growth and expanding into a new geographic location, what kind of challenges are they typically encountering, especially when managing devices and apps and end users?
Yeah, so sometimes if you're building out a new facility or expanding into a new geographic location, you'd want to get services up right away. So, for example, if you're building a building, you're hiring employees, you want to give them access. So there's usually there's like a time associated with that. So, if for example, it may take several months to build out a, facility and then provide users access and onboard those employees, which, every organization out there has some sort of competitor. They can, they're not really providing their services in that market as quickly as possible. So, it's also like, end users may not necessarily get applications or the things that they need to do work right away. So, that's one of the bigger challenges that it's just basically if you're expanding under growth, you'd want to be able to get to market as fast as possible.
And services such as Netflix have created a new standard. No matter where we are in or out of the office, we now expect that same experience across any device and at any time. I mean, is that something that you're having to take very seriously at Citrix now? And how has that change in customer expectation actually affected your strategy when helping businesses?
Yeah, so it's kind of like going into a little bit the future of work and what I was mentioning earlier, where so there's all these services that everybody uses in their home personal lives, provides like this seamless sort of experience, this very easy way of accessing something. So, right, to use the example as Netflix, where it's just a single application, but when it's launched, they have all their movies that are being delivered from somewhere, but they're not even thinking about where they're being delivered from, right? They're just coming out of some sort of data center that's running all of these, catalogs and movies. But from the end user perspective, they just basically have this optimal experience where, I just have one application I need to download, and I download that application, and then I have all these movies in my library. So think about that in perspective of corporate applications. Traditionally, if you're talking about a decade or 2 decades ago, if I needed to use an application for work, I needed to download that application or download a library, like a full set of applications. And I would need to bounce around windows, or I would need a separate login for one application and then another login for another application. So what we're trying to do, and a lot of organizations have embraced this, was think about that, but instead of movies, you're replacing that with your applications that you're going to need to do, like end users need to do for work. So they would download, basically our Citrix Workspace app client on their device. And when they log in, they're just logging in once, and then they see their actual catalog of corporate applications that their company has published for them. And then with our new stuff that we're offering with the Citrix Workspace, if you as an end user, you would log in single through the Citrix receiver, and then you could launch your applications without having to, re-log in or re-authenticate. So it's about delivering that seamless experience. The end user doesn't really know what's going on. They just know that they're logging in, and this is a more efficient and seamless way to work instead of just having to individually install a bunch of applications on my device and then having that log in and remember passwords for some of these specific systems or apps. So while, for example, while those applications are being essentially streamed to their choice of device, we have a lot of technology in place to make sure that's as seamless and provides that really local-like experience where it's almost as if it's launched on their specific device. But we also partner up with a lot of Citrix Ready partners, is what we call them, that are compatible with our software to help actually further optimize that user experience and help, not only drive productivity, but, basically give them this is maybe a preferred way of working versus the traditional way that, installing an application and then without having our solution.
And I'm glad you mentioned Citrix Ready partners there. And that's one of the reasons I thought it was so important to get ControlUp on here too, because you guys work with a number of Citrix Ready partners to improve these experiences that we've talked about. And I'd love to try and help people listening visualize exactly how you're doing that. So can you tell me a little bit more about your relationship with Citrix and also how you're actually helping customers?
Yeah, we're a Citrix Ready partner. One of the strengths of ControlUp is that we do monitoring, and we do monitoring of the user experience as well. So I was actually an administrator before joining ControlUp, so I've got a lot of background working with Citrix and Citrix technologies and how this whole ecosystem kind of plays together. One of the challenges of like a Citrix administrator is these are all essentially shared resources that you're running your applications on. And so if you have an application that uses a lot of CPU, the question starts turning into how many of these applications can run on one of these boxes or one of your hosts. And that's what ControlUp offers, is it offers this ability to actually monitor the performance of not only the application itself, but then the server that it sits on top, and then the host that sits on top of that. So we have visibility through the entire stack. And so as you're running this application, if it's using 50% CPU, naturally the math might say that you could have two of them on that one box. So that's what ControlUp can kind of offer. We've just come out with a new version 7.4, and this has actually added some improved user experience capabilities, user experiencing monitoring capabilities. Microsoft has come up with a new performance counter called user input delay that's going to be a part of WVD, the Windows 10 within WVD and Server 2019. And what it actually measures is when you click your mouse or type a key on the keyboard, it'll actually measure when that file menu comes down or when that menu comes back, and the UI gives you back that response. So when you type a key on the keyboard and you get a letter come up, it will actually measure how long that took. And so since this is a performance counter, we can actually integrate it into ControlUp, and we can actually measure how many milliseconds that took. And we can provide that to you as an administrator, as an end user in real time. So you can actually see the performance of your applications as they exist on this hardware.
And when we talk about things like monitoring and measuring metrics in real time, I think we should also point out that you also aggregate multiple elements into actions. But what exactly does that mean for a business leader listening? What would it mean for them?
So what it means for them is that there's different ways that ControlUp can actually help your business. So the biggest one is you can increase resource utilization. So what that means is you might be able to have more users on one box. So if you want to have a good user experience, so that way your people are efficient and they're providing you value as much as can be done, then you want them to operate as efficiently as possible. So what we can do is we can increase the resource utilization of your existing infrastructure by actually measuring the performance of all of these different counters and then having the admin make an intelligent decision based on the information that's there.
And of course, the words real-time seem to have different definitions in every industry. For example, I know that real-time personalization is not always as real-time as many believe. So can I just ask that you clarify what real-time means in this instance, and what can ControlUp do when a user has experienced degradation?
That's a great question. Coming from the administrator background, one of the more interesting challenges is understanding real-time. I used to work in a healthcare organization where a doctor would phone in saying, I've tried executing this set of actions and it's not responding. Well, if you look at a lot of, monitoring software, it takes time to aggregate that data and then present it to you. And sometimes this is in the span of like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 15 minutes. Well, when you have a doctor on the phone telling you it's slow, you can't tell him, hey, can you hold on a few minutes while I wait for my software to tell me how slow it was? So how ControlUp operates is it actually reads these in actual real time. And real time for us is defined as 3 seconds. So if you're on the phone with somebody and they click their mouse or they do that action, we get that response back in our software within 3 seconds.
So to help everyone listening understand exactly how Citrix Ready and ControlUp are helping solve problems for businesses by working together, are there any use cases around automation that you could possibly share?
Yes, I've actually got a lot of use cases. So ControlUp 7.4 came up with the new automation engine within it, so we can actually execute actions based on a set of triggers. So for instance, if you find a process within your server has been pegged at 100% for, say, 10 minutes or 15 minutes or so, odds are that process has crashed. Or if that's something you're familiar with, that that process is now in a dead state, we can actually execute something like a termination on it. So that way it terminates and then the user can continue on, as opposed to having to wait for them to call the help desk and then the help desk to forward the ticket to you for you to contact the user and then execute that action, which could take even significantly longer. I've actually, within the automation, I've been creating a series of blog posts that regard around some of the use cases. So some of the use cases that I've written about so far I've been focusing around improving the user experience. So kind of what we just discussed, it measures the user experience. If it determines that the user experience is starting to degrade, we can do something like increase the process priority. So that way it's given more CPU resources. We can reduce troubleshooting time by gathering contextual information around that problem. So for instance, I was working with a customer who's having an issue where their database goes down. Their Citrix database goes down, but it only goes down for a couple minutes. And Citrix has asked them to gather, multiple different points of information. The problem is when the database goes down, they may not get alerted until the problem has self-resolved through whatever mechanism that ends up being. And so what we can do is we can use automation to detect that and then immediately start executing these actions. So if they need to do a packet capture, if they need to run a CDF trace, or if they need to just do a ping test, all of that can execute immediately. And then the third way that we can actually use automation to help deliver value is with automatic remediation. So going back to that database down issue, if you're in a healthcare organization and there's times where nurses and doctors do shift changes, if your database happened to go down during that time, you might have 14 or 15 people trying to log on every second. And with Citrix, there's a delay of about 90 seconds, I think, between when it notices the database is down and when it switches to the local host cache to enable users to log back on again. And with ControlUp, we can actually pick up on that event and then just make that changeover happen instantly. So instead of being down for 90 seconds, they might only be down for 6 or 7.
And if we zoom out just for a moment, I can see how ControlUp and Citrix are complementing each other by optimizing the experience for your customers. But do you think that giving Citrix administrators the tools they need to properly monitor these Citrix environments and how it's performing, do you think they play a crucial role in delivering those experiences?
Yes, absolutely. One of the more interesting things about being able to provide this information to an administrator is that because all of these resources are now on back ends, on shared hardware, one of the things that happens is that we are now dedicating these administrators the task of making sure that our applications are performing correctly, that our hardware is performing correctly. So when it used to exist on the laptops and the desktops, the users kind of needed to self-manage those. But now that we're bringing them to the back end, we're putting all of this responsibility on just a single or maybe a small team of people. And so they need to have all of the information that they need in order to make appropriate decisions on how to make sure that these applications are performing correctly and, with good efficiency. Once we bring all of that back from their desktops and their laptops into the server backend, now the responsibility is on them to ensure those experiences are done correctly. So they need that information in order to make informed choices as to what needs to be done. So yes, absolutely, that they need everything, that they need all the tools available to them in order to make sure that their environments and their businesses are running efficiently.
So Citrix Workspace is aimed at changing the way people work in the new workforce, and the key goals seem to be about ensuring end users are using technologies that make them more productive. So I've got to ask, is there anything that really excites you about the future that you're creating here together?
Sure. Well, one of the things that ControlUp offers is we monitor the back end. As much as we say things are in the cloud and things are moving towards the cloud, and we're kind of bringing that visibility away from the end user, ControlUp can monitor those resources, and ControlUp can provide information as to how things are operating with those resources. I'm kind of dual hatting. I've got a Citrix CTP where I've come in from the administrator side, and now ControlUp is from the vendor side and the monitoring side. And when we talk about the Citrix experience, the most thing I'm excited about is the move towards, integrating everything into that single pane of glass that Citrix offers for Workspace.
Yeah, and just kind of add to that, going into the single pane of glass, we introduced the Workspace last year, and it's been one of the things that everyone at Citrix utilizes it. I was really, happy with when it rolled out because it gave me that single sign-on access to all my applications, whether they're web, Windows, or even my virtual desktops. But going into the future, a couple of months ago, we announced the Citrix Workspace with Intelligence. So what that is, and you can kind of see this today where with some sort of mobile devices like iPhones and Androids where, like, for example, I sit down and I start my car and my car will, my phone will recognize that I'm sitting down because it's connecting Bluetooth and it'll say, you're 20 minutes away from home. Like it also knows that it's just through machine learning and some of my regular tasks, it'll recognize the fact that I always launch a specific podcast, every day at 5:30 p.m. So it'll just give me a quick touch button and it'll launch me right into that that podcast without having to, go through and launch the app and then find the actual episode. So we're going to do that with actually the way people work with what's called Citrix Workspace with Intelligence, where you'll get an activity feed if it recognizes that you normally do a specific task at a specific time, saying, I have 5 approvals waiting for you to, sign off on. It'll bring that up in front and center when you log into the workspace. So you don't have to log into an actual application. It'll actually just give you that task right front and center so you can just complete that. So our goal is to remove and minimize the time it takes to navigate through applications. So while it may seem minute, where it says like you're saving 30 seconds, doing a certain task, when you start aggregating that throughout the day and, times that throughout the number of employees within an organization, you're not only improving end user experience and productivity, but you also improve the bottom line with a lot of, the wasted time that's spent just navigating around applications. So, just basically being really excited about a lot of the stuff that we have in the future and basically becoming the solution on how it is that people want to work.
Well, a huge thank you to both of you for coming on and joining me today. But before I do let you go, for everyone listening that wants to find out more information about Citrix or ControlUp and how you're working together, can you just remind them of your web details if they are left with any questions after our conversation today so they can find out more information?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can visit us at www.controlup.com. And if you want to learn more about the customer use cases and the customer stories that I've been working with and the information that we kind of talked about here, within ControlUp.com, there's a resources menu and then a blog underneath it that you can select. And I'll be sharing my stories and sharing how you can use automation to help improve your environment within those blog posts.
And you can learn a lot more about the Citrix Workspace and the Citrix Workspace with Intelligence if you visit www.citrix.com. You can also track a lot of our new announcements and regular announcements that we do on our blog site, which is updated daily. That's citrix.com/blogs. If you have any personal questions, you could just reach me via Twitter at Nitin Sharma _1. So that's my first and last name _1.
It really just seemed to me that the future of work is about using technologies that make them more productive. And you guys have both highlighted that perfectly today. So a big thank you for joining me on the first episode. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I really hope you enjoyed the first episode of the Citrix Ready podcast series. My takeaways from today's conversation was, like I said a few moments ago, it's all about the future of work. And Citrix Workspace is aimed at changing the way people work in the new workforce. Ultimately, the goal of the Citrix Workspace and the Workspace with Intelligence that was recently unveiled at Citrix Synergy 2019 is to ensure end users are using technologies that make them more productive. But the most exciting aspect for me is that they're not doing it all on their own. And it's by leveraging their partnerships that together they're improving these experiences that their customers are demanding. So if there are any problems that you'd like us to tackle here on this series, please let me know. And if you'd like to contact me directly, I'm available at techblogwriter@outlook.com, or you can catch me on Twitter at Neil C. Hughes. And for more information about ControlUp and its technologies, Remember, you can find them on the Citrix Ready marketplace at citrixready.citrix.com. But that's it for our first episode. I look forward to speaking with you all again soon and learning more about the role of Citrix Workspace and the future of work.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.